There's no sound, man. Babe, I need your help. God. No.
Like you hear me?
What do you need? What's going on? She didn't put this down. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to our Black Boys panel. Do me a favor and share this live wherever you are. Please share this live. We have an amazing, amazing group of panelists on here, and they're ready to share. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Share this to everybody that you know, please. All right. Great morning again. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Thank you all. For those of you who are tuning in, it means a lot to us. If you are anyone like me, and I'm going to introduce myself in a second, you know that this is a very important topic to be discussed. My name is Terry Khan. I am a recording artist, educator, actress, writer, but above all things, I am a mother to a Black son. As many of us share on this panel, we are all mothers to Black sons. And I know from a mother's perspective that when George Floyd cried out for his mother when he was being detained, every Black mother in America felt it. That is my reason for having this panel today. So again, please, this is important. Share this live. We have an amazing group of panelists. Most of them, all of them, they don't need introductions. But for those of you who do not know them, I'm going to go around. I'm going to let everyone just introduce who they are, starting with Reverend Caprice.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Morning.
My name is Reverend Caprice Nesbitt-Terrain. I'm the pastor of the Daughters of Zion International Ministries, Warriors for Christ. I've traveled to Africa, preach, teach. I'm also a mother. I'm also a grandmother of Black boys to men. And when I heard about Kaji, it touched my heart because none of our Black boys need to be sitting up in a prison just wasting away, because that's how I see it. And I want to do something for not just him, but for his mother, because I am a mother and I'm a grandmother, as I said. So hopefully this panel will help somebody, will answer some questions, and good morning again.
Thank you so much, Reverend Caprice. Next, we have Ms. Patricia Robinson.
Hi, I'm Pat Robinson. I'm so delighted to be here. By virtue, I am a mom. I am a grandmother. By profession, I am the Vice President of Human Resources and Community Engagement for Hot 97, WBLS, and WLIB. I've been in the broadcast arena for 19 years plus. I am also very honored to be a part of the senior leadership team for the Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights Camp. So I've been doing that for about 3 years. I live in Queens, New York, and I'm a community advocate. And I often just take the opportunity to engage in any way that I can to figure out solutions on how to save our generation, to sit down with leaders, to sit down with people who have knowledge and are trying to figure out solutions. So I'm really interested today to sit down with people who have common like goals, such as the people on this panel. And I'm really looking forward to sharing dialogue, getting information, and really having some in-depth discussion about how we save our community, not only Black boys, but we also have to protect our women as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Robinson. Mr. Pernell Bush.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me, Terry. And this is a very important conversation. My name is Pernell Bush. I'm the Executive Director of No Limit Health and Education. We are a 501c3 organization dedicated to promoting mental health wellness by providing services, outreach, programming, and I always say outreach, so my apologies. Also, I'm a practicing mental health clinician as a clinical social worker. I'm based here in Florida, but definitely this conversation is very important for us to be having for our community moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I see that we have Tim Terrain with us. Is he there? I don't see your picture. Mr. Terrain?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Tim Terrain. I'm the chair of the Co-Black Coalition. I'm also a candidate for city council out here at District 27. And as a son, right, this topic is very important to have to watch my own mother go through changes as I get in trouble, or if I have to encounter with the police department and the law enforcement officers and go through court. It's a burden on her. And believe it or not, it hurts our sons. Sometimes we get called mama's boys for feeling that way. So I want to join this discussion to explain from a son's perspective of not just any son, but somebody that could admittedly say, I've made many wrong decisions. I don't call them mistakes. I intentionally made these decisions.
Wow.
And I've accepted that. They're not mistakes. However, I also understand the hurt that it may have caused my mother from the mistakes that I've made, but also what she had to endure from the system that was also unfair, where it's the things that they did. So that's why I'm on this conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Terrain. Last but not least, we have Mr. Joey Jackson with us.
A pleasant good morning to everyone. Hope all is well. I apologize for the background noise. I'll speak through it. Let me just say that I'm very pleased to be a part of a panel like this. I'm so glad that it was put together, and I think it's so necessary. We are in very important and trying times. What do? I'm an attorney. I started off as a prosecutor. I then transformed and became a defense attorney after prosecuting. I know full well the nature of the system, the nature of interaction between our communities and between police. In addition to that, as you may not know, I also commentate for the media. I'm a analyst for CNN and Headline News as well. And it's very tiring. It's tiring to continue to talk about and have these stories where I think it needs to stop already. And I think we're at a point in time where we've reached a crossroads. We are seeing throughout the country, just repeatedly, we're seeing marches. I think one of the things I'm heartened by is the fact that, certainly they're more diverse now. But in any event, I'm troubled by it. And so, yes, in my profession, I deal with law and the criminal justice system. Yes, in my profession, I speak about law. And then the final thing is that, my son is an African-American man. And, I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned about his plight. And I'm concerned about his future as I am about everyone's future and everyone's interaction with the police. So I'm just, I'm glad to be here.
We're so honored to have each and every one of you. Again, thank you for lending your time and your expertise to such a necessary topic. So we're going to jump right into it. Patterns of police injustice, patterns of racial inequality. It's been going on since the eons of time. And I wanted to start by you all just sharing your personal experiences. We had Reverend Kevin McCall, who was supposed to be on, who is a personal friend of mine and a lead activist. Like, he is always on the news, standing right behind Al Sharpton, right next to George Floyd's brother. I wanted him to start with his personal experiences, but in the interim, I'm going to jump straight to you, Ms. Pat, because as you mentioned, you were part of the Colin Kaepernick Know Your Rights Camp, which is such an amazing initiative. So we're going to start with you. Just share some of your experiences, some things that you have seen in your time, please.
Yeah, so I mean, that's probably one of the most rewarding experiences that I have the honor to be a part of. And I mean, I'm learning so much from it. You know, from a personal standpoint, it's something that, you know, continues to compel me to go forth every single day. And I just can't stop, you know, my day job. I can't stop what I'm doing. I just am connected on so many fronts. And I hope, before I even talk about that, I hope by the time that this panel is over, because I do understand that there are a lot of people who are not in a position to get out and be community activists in terms of being a part of being on the ground, and they're not sure how to activate. And I don't want to make people feel like just because you're not on the ground that you're not caring about something, because I believe that there's something that everyone can do, whether that's sharing dialogue, whether that's being a part of something, whether that's sharing information, or just, you know, creating some kind of information group. But this program is a multi-city program designed to advance the civil rights and liberation through education, self-empowerment for our young people. We travel across the country. We talk to hundreds of students in cities, and we focus on pillars around self-empowerment, leadership, technology, financial literacy, civil rights, and we really focus on what's really important, which is law advocacy. And we teach the young people about knowing their rights by the state that they live in. And we do it in such a manner because it's important that we have to make sure that they're able to retain it, that they're able to understand it, and to apply it. So we don't do it in a manner that it goes over their head and that after we're done these seminars that they've forgotten about it. We want to make sure that when they're out in the street and if they have an encounter, they can remember what they've learned in our camp. And I think it's really important that this camp is broadly publicized. I mean, we don't publicize it in a way in media. I mean, we do such an amazing job in moving from city to city, but Mr. Kaepernick is well beyond his years in time and advancement. But his camp is premised on 10 points. And these 10 points are things that are free and they're very relevant as to our existence. And the 10 points are: you have the right to be free. You have the right to be healthy. You have the right to be brilliant. You have the right to be safe. You have the right to be loved. You have the right to be courageous. You have the right to be alive. You have the right to be trusted. You have the right to be educated. And you have the right to know your rights. I mean, I don't know how much more simpler that could be in a time like now. And I think it's really important that we get to the bottom of understanding and teaching our young folks and even educating ourselves to a point where, you know, when we get to what is a non-confrontational, what is confrontational communication? What is non-confrontational communication? We have to teach our children how to survive. We can't even get to the point of how to teach them how to thrive. We got to teach them how to survive first. Exactly. And we have to understand that as parents and how to guide them. And we have to teach them that. And so my spirit stays troubled, and I'm never going to be at rest until we get some solutions here. So that may have been a big, broad answer, but as a parent, as somebody who cares, I can't rest at night. So, you know, my blood is always kind of boiling in this space. And whatever power and whatever influence I have, I connect into it fourfold. I'm going to continue to push as long as there's breath in my body to make these cylinders go so that we can mass mobilize and get our generations connected and get us to the place that we need to be.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Miss Robinson. You have the right to know your rights. That's so powerful. And we're going to jump into that in a little bit with Mr. Jackson. Reverend Caprice, please share. You're on mute.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I have a lot of noise in the background.
Okay.
I'm a mom. My son has been introduced, as I will say it like that, to the justice system on both sides.
Mhm.
And it troubled me. I felt like my hands were tied.
Mhm.
I felt like they had all the power. And it troubled me. I remember when my son was a little boy. Well, not a little boy. He was in grade school, and he was being bothered by some other students, and we had to get the police involved.
Mhm.
And I remember being in the car with the police. Now, I've always raised my son, say, don't fight, be good, be nice in school, and all of that. And when
Right.
I got in the police car with him, they told him that he should fight and he should protect himself. And I said, so you can arrest him?
Right.
And it was dead silence. So how do we have that conversations with our Black boys?
Yes.
It's a conversation to be had. And it needs to be had, I believe, with the police, because we are only then having a half of a conversation with no
Right.
response.
Right.
I have a grandson, 17 years, will be 17. I say 17. He'll be 17 in a couple of months in September. And he too, he's tall. There's a certain look. If you're tall, for the most part, you stand out, and we're trying to now camouflage our sons to not to stand out.
Right.
And we should be telling them to stand out
Correct.
because they have so much to offer. I am also an MSW, so I talk to a lot of people. I don't like talking about myself. So, but I talk to a lot of young people. And it's hard to tell them to be somebody, be great at what you're doing. And then on the other hand, telling them, but don't do too much.
Right.
Don't say too much. You have to be quiet. Don't be too Black. Don't be too right. Don't be too, because now they're going to label you
Right.
as a troublemaker if you stand up for your right, as someone that, uh, um, you know, they label us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I get tired of hearing the labels, and fighting, but I'm not going to stop fighting. So
You
when my
don't.
son was there, I could not, they didn't want mom to say anything, but this mom was going to say something.
Right.
But I couldn't say, I couldn't say everything I wanted to say because I didn't want it to be retaliatory on my son.
Right.
So there's a lot of conversation that has to happen. And when we talk about Kajay, just the whole setup and me reading it, I had questions right away, right off the bat. I said, that doesn't even make sense in connections. So I want to do something. I want to be more than just a panelist. I want to be able to help the moms that are going through this. I want to be able to help the sons that are going through this. So that's my personal experience without personal experience.
Thank
in
you so
respect to
much for
my-
that. Thank you, Reverend Caprice. And our relationship started off as just I want to I want to do this panel and you all please come and lend your expertise. Then as the woman on the panel, as we began talking, we said, no, we have to continue. This cannot just be a one-person thing, a one-time thing, excuse me. For those of you who are watching, if you'll notice going across the screen, we do have an email address, ourblackboys@gmail.com, that if you are a mother who is in need of help, and you're going to learn a little bit more about what we're doing as the panel progresses. But I just want to put that out there now, that if you are in need of some type of help, please email us, ourblackboys@gmail.com, because this is going to be a reoccurring thing. Thank you for sharing. And speaking of your son, your son is our next panelist, Mr. Tim Terrain, who is, I call him the voice, right? He is the one that walks into the police stations and says, listen, and he fights on behalf of our Black boys. So, Mr. Terrain, if you can just share some of your personal experiences, please.
How you doing? Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Personal experience. I'm gonna start out with one personal experience. I came home from Afghanistan right after being over there for about 7 months. I was home on leave. I went uptown. I joined a friend of mine's. Haven't seen him in about 7 months. Just came back from combat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm home on leave for 2 weeks. The person, obviously, we had a couple of drinks, so we had the person that wasn't drinking drive my rental car.
Okay.
Unfortunately, she really doesn't know Washington Heights, so she missed the exit that goes on to the FDR. Some people know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
All right, so we had to go around up 174, and 174 is kind of hot, as they call it, right? It's a hot block.
Yes.
But we had to come down 174 to get back to where we need to be.
Right.
As soon as we're about to go onto the highway, we get pulled over. What was it for? Was it for a blinker? No. Was it for a stop sign run? No. I asked what it was for. Shut up, you're in the back seat. You don't got to say nothing. That's what I was told. I was like, excuse me? Now, I don't encourage anybody to be confrontational with police.
Mm-hmm.
However, as a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army at the time, I was E5 actually, I was sergeant, and a squad leader, and an acting platoon sergeant, I felt the need and I felt compelled that I wasn't going to allow anybody to talk like this to me after I've been in 7 months from Afghanistan.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Understood.
And I made them bring their attention to me. And I wanted to know what the stop was about. They finally decided to pull me out the car. They pulled me out the car. They had me cross my legs, sit on the trunk. Mind you, I still don't know why we're being stopped.
Right.
FYI. Pulled me out the trunk, crossed my legs. I said, well, that's your lieutenant? Tell your lieutenant to come over here. And the lieutenant want to come over here. Hey, wise guy. I said, before you keep going, call me Sergeant Terrain. Here's my orders. That changed the whole conversation. Oh, Whip, you home on leave? Yeah. I'm going to call my first sergeant who's here right now, detective, first grade detective, NYPD. I'm letting him know what's going on right now. I'm a sergeant. I'm home on leave, and now you're harassing me. You know what their response was? We're sorry, there was a shooting at the garage. My answer was, what did that have to do with me?
Right.
If there was a shooting at the garage, why are you at the FDR? You should be at the garage.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, this is a rental car that you rented. You're supposed to be driving. I was like, I am drinking. I cannot drive.
Right.
They made me get into that driver's seat because it was either that or have to go through we're going to have to tow the car, etc. The threats. I'm like, yo, if I get pulled over, then what?
Wow.
Oh, this is what police have done, where they look for things and they look to engage Black men and Black women into a situation where it escalates into a stronger case. Understand, these weren't blue and whites that pulled me over. These were detectives inside of an unmarked car, plain clothes. All right? They're not looking for running stop signs. They're not looking for no blinkers. They're looking for something, and they just did whatever they felt like doing. And I've had to deal with this and encounter this throughout my military career when I come back home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I hear a story like Kaj, And I did 2 degrees. I had one of my degrees in legal studies. And as soon as I read the article, my other degree is in public relations.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that they spun the article to engage their particular readers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then as I'm reading the article, I said, they just railroaded this boy.
Correct.
For him to get hit with the crime that he got hit with for something that has happened time and time again as people sleep in their beds, for example, smoking a cigarette. I just felt really disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt further disturbed when I read the date of the article.
Wait,
December 23rd.
Mr. Tremaine, I'm gonna stop you because we're gonna,
Okay.
Kajay, we're gonna talk about Kajay.
But hold up, I'm gonna say this.
Go ahead.
He's there too long.
Yes.
And so it's men like him and boys like him that we have to be the voice for. Many of the people that we're not standing up for are behind bars. There's no cameras. There's no social media. There's no engagement behind there.
Yep.
Anything and everything is happening to them.
Yep.
I have a friend in federal prison right now who just got coronavirus last week. He's been sitting for 7 months without seeing a judge.
Jesus.
So right now, these are things that the system decides to abuse, and we don't get a chance to talk about it. We only are able to talk about the George Floyd. We don't talk about the George Floyds that don't end up in the death.
Right.
We don't talk about what's going on behind bars.
Right.
This is a big systematic problem. And
Right.
it's not just white people. It's the culture of these organizations that allow people to feel that authority.
Mm-hmm.
Also mean there's some type of God and power over your human body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
incorrect. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm standing up for.
Thank you. As a mother of a Black son, I'm going to be totally transparent and say a few years ago, I said, well, I'm just going to make sure that I don't grow my son up in the hood, right? We're just not going to live in the hood. So, because we all know that they're targeted. I don't want my son to be a target. So I'm just going to make sure that we live in a nice area. And then we had Trayvon Martin, and one could argue that, well, that was his father's neighborhood. He didn't really live there, so maybe they didn't know. And then we had more instances and ending up with Ahmaud Arbery. So it's like, so we can't live in a nice place. We can't live in the hood. At the end of the day, our Black boys are targets. Bottom line. I want to read some facts before I bring on our next panelist. A Black person is 5 times more likely to be stopped without just cause than a white person. A Black man is twice as likely to be stopped without cause than a Black woman. 65% of Black adults have felt targeted because of their race. 65%. 1,025 people have been shot and killed by police in the past year. 84% of Black adults say white people are treated better than Black people by police. Lastly, 87% of Black adults say the US criminal justice system is more unjust towards Black people. And even 61% of whites agree. So with that information, what do we do? This is the reality in which we live in. And my answer is knowledge is power. So I reached out to Mr. Joey Jackson, who's a very well-known defense attorney, So I really need to know from you. I feel like we just need to go back to the basics. What is the protocol? How do we deal with that? If I am a Black boy and I get stopped by the police, what is protocol? What are Miranda rights? What are interrogation tactics? Like, I want you to lay it out on us because we need this knowledge. And we'll be surprised that some people don't know about Miranda rights. So, Mr. Jackson, I'm going to put this on you now.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, one will be provided. So listen, there are some serious issues in our communities for sure. And let me just, preface this with a couple of things. Number one, I understand, the tough and dangerous job that officers go through. My father was a police officer, encouraged me to become one. I had other plans for my life. Wonderful dad. May he rest in peace. I get it. I grew up in the Bronx. I should let everyone know, born and raised next to Edenwald projects, interactions with the police, aplenty. Friends, of mine growing up, interactions with the police, aplenty. And I approach this not from a place of every officer's bad, get rid of every cop on the street. I get that. I'm not here to castigate police officers, right, downgrade them, tell them they're terrible. I salute their service. They're out there doing a great job every day and twice on Sunday. However, there are officers who are not doing a great job. There are officers who are condescending, who are disrespectful, who are not approaching the job with courtesy, professionalism, and respect. And so the first thing when we talk and have this conversation, people like to be treated like they have value. People like to be treated like human beings. People like to be respected. And again, don't want my remarks construed as, I saw Joey Jackson hating the police, telling the police they know where they can go. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a place of we need to do better. They need to do better. And the fact is that any officer who steps out of line needs to be held accountable. That's the bottom line. And so I don't think people should be protected because they wear a uniform. I don't think people should be protected because they wear a suit. I think people need to approach this, and officers need to approach this at a place of recognition. Recognition of what? Recognition of police need communities, communities need police. So how are we going to bridge that gap? How are we going to bridge that divide? We're going to do it in a place of accountability. Now, the first thing that I always preach at all times when I'm talking to young people who I have the pleasure of speaking to regularly, whether it be in our schools, whether it be college, whether it be law schools, whether it be just in a number of other circumstances where I'm afforded to have these discussions, is something is so very important. And that is to comply now and grieve later. There's various forums in which you can air whatever your concerns are. And yes, oftentimes we don't feel, right? People may be stopped and they're not respected. They may be stopped and they're not afforded the courtesy. They may be stopped and there's a presumption made as to whether or not they engage in illegalities or crimes or what have you. The streets is not a forum to be taking matters into your own hands. Because if that's the case, you'll lose 100 out of 100 times. The way in which the police approach things is that they roll up on you oftentimes in numbers. And those numbers are not designed to lose. Those numbers are designed to win. And so if you want to air your grievance, the grievance is aired in a forum where it is a court of law, right? So out on the streets of police, you own the streets. But when you come to my house, that's a court of law. Now it's a little different. Now I have, and I'm afforded the opportunity to question you about what you did, why you did it, who you did it with, where were you, where were they? And you know what? There's a thing called perjury, and you don't want to get involved in that. And so the first order of business as we have this discussion is just to let our young people know that we want to comply now and grieve later. And okay, I understand you may not be treated fairly. Yes, I understand you have a grievance. Yes, I understand that a human reaction is one response begets another response. If someone treats you with courtesy, generally speaking, it is, right, the normal reaction to respond in kind, right? And I always think that it's easier to be politer and nicer than it is to be the opposite, okay? Not everyone shares that view. But I think if we're going to move forward, and we're going to move forward in a way where, we get a grapple on this stuff, there has to be an adult in the room. And the adult in the room, I tell people, again, and I'm not being derogatory towards police or anyone else, is that we have to be. The fact is that, you know what? We have to be courteous, and we need to comply with respect to what goes on. Things may not be fair. And I deal with these issues. You got an issue, call me. We'll take care of it in court. Right? Not many things I'm good at in life. The court thing happens to be something I am good at. 1,000 things I'm terrible, right? People do way better than me, and I'll be the first to admit I'm the worst, right? But when it comes to that forum, I'm not. I'm pretty proficient. And so what do I mean by that? It's not about me. It's about waiting and allowing for the opportunity for that forum to air your grievances. There's various things you can do to beget police accountability. There's things you can do in order that you can be made whole after the fact. But you cannot be made whole if you're not here. You cannot be made whole if you have a bullet in you. You cannot be made whole if you're beaten savagely and badly, right? And so the fact is that I just want compliance, okay? That's the number one thing. Comply now, grieve later, number one. Number two, as it relates to when you're arrested, Miranda rights, and what do they mean? What happens? What's that all about? Miranda rights are the ability of a person to be read their rights so that they know and understand what they're walking into and getting into. Now, let me clarify a few myths. People say, my case should be dismissed because I haven't been read my Miranda rights. That's not the case. Miranda rights are given under this condition. They're given under, and I'm going to maybe say some things, but I promise I'll break them down. It's called a custodial interrogation. What on earth is this man talking about, a custodial interrogation? What I mean is that in the event that you're going to be questioned, that is what implicates the right of Miranda. In the event I'm going to be questioned, right? And so if police are going to ask you questions, right, then at that point, you have the ability to be read your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be afforded to you. And so that's the only basis really upon which officers need to be reading your rights and telling you what your rights are. Under any other circumstances, they're not. So let me clarify. Say, for example, you get arrested. Sometimes, oftentimes, when you get arrested and you go to court, you'll hear the defendant stated in sum and substance, right? What is a defendant? It's a person who gets arrested and who's accused of a crime, okay? The defendant stated in sum and substance. Officers are allowed, when you're out there and you're making statements, to record those statements and to come to court and to talk about what those statements mean. And so if you volunteer a statement, you forfeit a right, right? You don't have any obligation to give a chapter and verse to police about what occurred on the street. You don't have any obligation to tell your story about what occurred. You have a right to remain silent, and people generally don't use that right, and they really should, because oftentimes you know what you said, but you don't know what the other person heard. You don't know what the other person interpreted. You don't know what the other person perceives you to mean. And so I'm one that believes a lot of times less is more. And so in your interactions with the police, you want to keep it, things can jump from 0 to 60 very quickly. Right. And unfortunately, everyone who is here and everyone listening has seen that and knows that. And I get, again, officers have a dangerous job. There's no such thing as a routine traffic stop, but things can get out of control very quickly. And as a result of that, you want to keep the temperature down. You want to be the adult in the room if the other person is not being the adult in the room. Now, when you encounter an officer, understand this, that like everybody else, right? Just like when I'm in a courtroom in front of a judge, that judge may be having a bad day. That judge may have issues happening at home. That judge may have other concerns that are not, readily apparent to me. We don't wear them on their sleeves, but they're going on inside their head. Same thing as an officer on the street. The distinction is that the officer on the street has a gun. And that officer on the street has the ability to deprive you of your freedom and deprive you of your life. And so what is of most concerning is that we want people to be safe. We want you to be sound. We want you to be secure. And so you're going to essentially comply and do what you need to do. You're going to have the officer understand that you don't represent a danger or mean to be a danger. Now, we know that can go south too. We can talk about so many instances. Philando Castile, hey, officer, I have a gun. I have a gun. It's in my waistband. All right. I'm just letting you know. Hey, show me your ID. Okay. Don't grab. He's killed. Like, how does that happen? He expressed him he had a gun, not because he was going to pull it out and shoot him, but expressed he had a gun to let him know, hey, it's good. I just want you to know. So if you see it, I don't die. He died anyway. And so the objective always is one of safety, right? Officers have a right to go home safe to their families. I get it. But so do other people in the community with whom they're interacting with. And so that's the first order of business, that we want everybody to be safe. We want people to be secure. Now, understand that I could teach this all day and twice on Sunday, but there's a distinction between how things unfold and how they unfold in a classroom, say this is the classroom, and how they unfold in the reality. We know that on the street, things can be hot. We know on the streets, things can be dangerous. We know on the streets that tempers can flare. We know on the streets that people feel, right, that they're the victims of injustice, like constantly. Why are you bothering me again? Like, what did I do now? Why are you stopping me? Why are you looking at me? Why are you even talking to me, officer? So I get people get hot like that. And it's very frustrating. Of course it's frustrating. But the number one objective, again, is to maintain and to ensure that we go home to our families safely and securely, that you go home to your mothers and fathers and those who love you in a safe and secure way. And in the event, as I mentioned before, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, in the event that you feel you've been slighted, that's what lawyers are for. That's what forums are for. And, you know, there have been recoveries by people who have interacted with the police in a negative way that have been pretty substantial. So know that in a court of law, you could be listened to. Now, just a couple of things. I don't want to ramble too much, and I know I have limited time.
You're not rambling.
Okay.
Oh, this is good.
Thank you.
So
So
good.
I'll say this. The fact is that when we talk about that Miranda, I talked about the custodial interrogation. But many people do believe, in terms of the custodial interrogation, that when they actually are not given their Miranda rights, that their case gets dismissed. That's not true. As I mentioned before, what happens is if a police does not give you Miranda, but they question you, we can get those statements thrown out of court. If
Right.
police try to pat and frisk you and they didn't have the ability to do it properly, we can get any item that they seize from you thrown out of court. So there are remedies, and it does happen. And I'm here to tell you that our system needs a lot of work. Our system, yes, is broken. Our system really needs to be shaken up, and we can do better. But there have been results in court, right? And look, you know, I can tell you because I've witnessed it, I've seen it, I've been a product of it. Whereas if somebody is not treated the right way, cases get dismissed, items they've had on them have been thrown out, property they had have been thrown out that would have been used against them in court, statements that they would have made have been thrown out. So it's a workable system, and it's a system that can work. We just have to allow it to work. But at the end of the day, we want to be safe, secure, and we want all of our people to grow up to do wonderful, beautiful things. And you can only do that if you're alive.
That's awesome. Can I just jump in here because I think this is important too? Can you share with the audience in reference to technology, the one-party state, the two-party state, when people are videotaping, like what is authorized and just that whole what we can do, what we should do, because automatically everyone just videotapes and says, okay, I got it on video. Can you just?
Oh no, she's frozen. So the question,
She's frozen, but she still looks great.
doesn't she?
It's so funny. Every Saturday I'm out here and it's quiet. Today I have this to do, and it's like a grand conspiracy against me. It's not. But anyway,
We can hear you fine. It's cool.
let me explain what happens. We live in a world of technology, and in that world of technology, the first thing I'll say about it is, you know, the question arises: are things worse now, or is this the way it's always been, and are we just seeing it now? I mean, in this world of technology, we're seeing it now. Things have gone on for a long time, but people are reporting things. Now, I want to make a distinction between what Patricia Robinson was saying in terms of one party, two party, because it's important. Now, you have a right to record whatever you want to record, right? We live in a democracy. We live in America. And as a result of this recording, recording things has unearthed so much information in terms of what happened, how it happened, where it happened, who was where, what was what. And then you see reports, and those reports, when you match them against the technologies that have been shown, bear no relation to what we see on a tape. And it's very disturbing. But when we talk about one party, two party, we're not talking about video as we know it, where we're recording things on the street. Everyone, no matter the state you're on, you can do that.
Right.
When Patricia Robinson is speaking about one party versus two party, that usually relates to a phone conversation. And when we have one party, two party, in some states, they're called one party state. What that means is that one person on the conversation can consent to it being recorded, and it's perfectly acceptable. So if somebody calls me and I'm recording them, I'm one party. So I now, as one party, can take it upon myself to record that conversation. There are other states, however, that are two-party, meaning if you want to record the conversation, what happens is you have to get the other party to consent to it. If you don't do it, it's illegal. So that's essentially what we're talking about when we say one and two-party states. We're talking about recording of conversations, and we're talking about the ability of one person on the phone to make a decision to record it, as opposed to two-party states where you need both people to consent in order for it to be recorded. To the extent that they don't, it will not be able to be used, and ultimately, it is a crime to do so. And so we have to be wary of that.
Is New York a one-party or a two-party state?
New York is a one-party state. So record at will. If anybody calls you, you call them. You know, you make that decision to do. But here in New York, it's a one-party, unlike and most states throughout the country. But there are those instances where there are two-party states, and you can get into a bit of a trouble.
Just for our knowledge, can you just list maybe 3 of the two-party states? Mr. Jackson, we can't hear you anymore.
Sorry.
Okay, there you go.
Sometimes I don't want to be heard. Or I should
need your voice. We need you.
So a big one that I think everyone can relate to that's a two-party state is California.
Okay.
And for those people who are, you know, for those on our West Coast and in LA, be careful if you're in California because, you know, you need the other person's consent in order to do it.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Stay silent. Stay calm. Let your lawyer fight your battles, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. Now, one of my biggest qualms is something called the interrogation tactics of detectives. And this is my last question to you, and then I might leave you alone, Mr. Jackson. Can you shed some light on interrogation tactics? Because we know that it is a skill, and we know what they're trying to get out of us. So can you please shed some light on that?
Of course. So it's never a bother. I'll be here. You ask me whatever you want. I'm going to remain silent, and I'm going to enjoy the knowledge that I'm about to get from the other panelists. So if you meet later on in the show, just, you know, let's say, hey, I need something, and I'll be here.
We appreciate you.
Welcome back. We know you went out.
Yeah, I know. The devil just jumped in my internet. Oh, devil.
It didn't work. It didn't work, but you're back here now.
Yes.
Listen, as it relates to interrogation tactics, I'll just say this, is that pretty much it's open season. And so courts have pretty much really rendered their conclusions on this. And detectives are allowed to be deceitful. They're allowed to be untruthful. They're allowed to engage in ruses. They're allowed to engage in surprises. They're allowed to engage in misrepresentation. So whenever there's an interrogation, and it happens often, where you'll have multiple defendants, for example, who have been arrested, and you have a detective in one room saying, yep, you know what? Charlie's giving you up. Charlie's telling exactly what happened, and, you know, you're here, you're going to take the fall. And Mary's in the other room saying it was all you. Mary and Charlie haven't said a word.
A word.
It is not a word. But the fact is that the court deemed it to be lawful. When you're being interrogated, pretty much everything is on limits and not off limits. And so you have to be careful. And that's why you have to exercise your right to remain silent. And here's what I say in terms of exercising your right to remain silent. I have never known in 2 decades of practice, in more than 2 decades of practice, right, either as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney, for someone accused of a crime to say, I'm going to tell you what happened. And they give such a compelling, wonderful story that the police say, really? Is that what happened? You can go home. Case is over. Take off the cuffs. You know what? Have a good life. It doesn't happen. So if it's not going to help you, why do it? And, you know, we understand everybody. They're smooth operators. People are smooth talkers. I can talk my way out of this. No, you can't. And so, you know, again, it's just not worth it. And so at the appropriate time, you share with your counsel what occurred. And as a result of that, now you're in a court battle, you're in a court fight. We can do what we need to do in order to represent your interests, but no good comes from you speaking. And I don't mean to say that as an obstructionist. I don't mean that to say that as a person who's looking to get people out and from under accountability. I'm just looking to say that because whenever you speak, it's construed in 70 different ways, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Say, Terry Khan told me this, and Patricia Robinson told me that.
Right.
Pernell Bush said this and the other, and Pernell Bush saying, I didn't say anything like that, right?
Right.
And Terry saying, what are you talking about? So the bottom line is, it's just not worth your while to say anything. Be calm, stay cool, be courteous, wait for your day. Your day's gonna come, and we got you.
So when we talk about staying calm, letting your lawyer fight for you, some people, when they hear lawyer, they automatically think $10,000 retainer. Is everyone afforded a lawyer? Can anyone just get a lawyer?
Yes. So under our system of justice, the fact is that you're entitled to an attorney, and legal aid gets a bad rap, and I feel badly about that because there are a lot of legal aid lawyers who are very passionate, who are such great advocates, and I think they get a bad rap perhaps because they're overworked. There's just too many cases. There's a lot of things that they have going on. But you can have legal aid lawyers who are very, very good and will serve your interest very well. With regard to private counsel, yes, you do have to pay. And it could get pretty costly. 10,000 could be on the low end. So you got to be very careful about what you do, because justice, as we know, could be very expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question, and hopefully the devil will stay away from my internet this time. So with the legal aid process, I know there are a lot of people, that they have to go that route, and it's not a bad route, but sometimes they get frustrated because they feel like the representation is not as connected to the case, and they don't know that they're getting the best representation. You don't have the opportunity to select and say, oh, I would like another person to represent me because I don't think that you're doing the best that you can to maximize the results. How do you manage that process? Like, how can you manage it, or are you just deal with it? You can't select in the process. Like, what is that? How do you manage that?
So,
and is it just managing your own expectations?
It's a great question, Patricia. And the answer is that you have the right to counsel. You don't have a right to counsel of your choosing, counsel of your liking, counsel, who you believe is better than another counsel. And so certainly if you're having issues with your legal aid lawyer, you can come to court, you can put it on record, and you can get a lawyer changed for you because of, whatever discrepancies you're not being able to get through. So you do have a right in that regard, but you don't have a right to say, okay, I want to interview 10 lawyers and I'm going to say that this one I want. And so there's some deficiencies, with regard to getting a lawyer if it's legal aid. When I say deficiencies, not on, that they're deficient lawyers, but there's not a process that affords people the ability to choose one over the other. And so to some extent, it is a process where you largely have to deal with. And unfortunately, it's a moneyed world, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And in a moneyed world, we see it every day. Those who have money get justice. I don't want to inject politics into this, but
let's.
Okay,
but I do understand. Yeah. And I think the other part of this is that, the unfortunate part of this is that, from a mother's perspective, I can imagine that there are parents who are dealing with this, are having to self-educate on terminologies and language that they've never been exposed to. It's very intimidating having to talk to people with this level of education, language and terms that they've never heard before. They don't know how to research. Like, you're being thrust into this whole environment that you don't understand. You're feeling inadequate, inappropriate. You don't know how to communicate properly. And then you're full of passion and emotions about your personal situation. You don't know how to. And so you're now trying to become a lawyer in your own right, trying to understand how to understand the jargon so you can connect to that person to connect to the ultimate goal, which is to save your child. So it's like, it's this whole big pot of, is there anything from a parent's perspective that, before your child may get in the system, is there any resources that parents can, just in general, in terms of knowing your rights and just general basic things that we can start educating ourselves on, resources that we should start reading on and just having a self-awareness of. That's why I'm trying to help self-educate us,
right,
so we can help each other.
It's a great point, Patricia. It really is. I'm so glad you brought it up. I think, just having general discussions, we as parents, obviously, we're concerned about our children. We're concerned, male, female. We're concerned where they are, who they're with, what they're doing. We're concerned about false accusations. We're concerned about them getting stopped. And I think having the discussion with them beforehand and just a general discussion about some of the things we're talking about now is very helpful. I think having a discussion about, their interactions with people and what they should be doing and their interactions, I think a general discussion and a continued dialogue of that gives people an awareness. And when you have an awareness about something, you then can take appropriate steps to guard against what could be the wrong path, And so I think it's always very important, just in terms of, the discussions I had with my son growing up, just important things like talking about humanity and talking about treating people with, if there may be some people who don't treat you with respect, but treat people, I don't care if they're shining your shoes, bringing your coffee, or the CEO of the company, everyone should be treated with courtesy, with respect, professionalism, with love. And the flip side to that, Patricia, is that there will be people who treat you unfairly and people who are not nice to you, but if you stoop to that level, it makes you just as bad as them. And so, just having general discussions, and then of course having discussions about the realities of policing in our community. And again, I'm not saying police looking to wake up and shoot and kill people, everyone, but we need to tell our children what to be careful for.
So my other part, and the second part of my question is, that's like the emotional part of us, right? But then now I want to shift it on the educational, like what can we do? Because I also teach in college. I'm trying to help our parents from an educational standpoint. As parents, what can we do from an educational point that we can access for free resources, that we can help each other as parents, the things that we can go to read to help ourselves? Is there anything, and you may not have anything right now, but if you can think about it and maybe share it back, or we can share it out as parents to parents, are there things that you may have talked about? Hey guys, you may want to read up on these things on Miranda rights and things, one party, two state party, things that we can keep top of mind from an education. Because I think outside of us having these passions and emotions about what we see and communicate, I think the second part of this is that we have a responsibility to educate ourselves so that when we're in places where we have to advocate, we don't have to have 15 people around us. We can do that by ourselves, for ourselves, intellectually, and get points across. And I think we need to not just rely on one person. We need to start empowering each person around as much as we can, as many parents as we can.
100%. So that's where it's a short answer, Patricia. Google is a beautiful thing.
I love it.
Google.
Whatever question you have answered, it'll answer it there. I mean, listen, I have info on my website. I put out letters.
And what's your website? That's a good place.
Just type in my name and www.joeyjacksonlaw.com. You'll see all kind of information about police and this and the other. And, so but again, it's not limited to me. You can just do a general Google search and it'll educate you on many things you need to know. And knowledge is in itself is not power. It's the execution of that knowledge that's power. So we got to talk about it now that we know it and understand it. We have to talk in order for everyone to get the information. So,
thank you. I think this is my last question. It's for you.
So of course. So let me say this: if I go out, I'm like at 2%. So I'm gonna plug in and I'll be back. It's not I'm leaving or so just ask your question. But if I go out, I didn't abandon you. It's just because of that. Okay.
Thank you for letting us know. What is again, back to the basics? No. What is a plea deal? And why is it always offered to us?
So plea deals, there's a number of reasons why, for example, a case can be resolved. And sometimes, and everyone's afforded the opportunity to go to trial, but oftentimes the stakes are higher. So, for example, I would sit with a client and say, look, there's a 5-year plea deal. In the event you lose, you could be doing 10, you could be doing 15. And so plea deals are done in order to short circuit the trial process and to provide an opportunity where there's a bottleneck of cases to perhaps lessen the amount of cases, lessen the burden on the judicial system, and give people the ability to plead out early. Because if you do go to trial and you do lose, the stakes are substantially higher, and that's what ends up happening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Mr. Purnell, we're gonna have you jump in this section. We know that you are a mental health clinician.
Yes, yes.
Now, a few months back, my family and I decided to participate in the Code Black rally that was spearheaded by the Excellent Church and Tim Terrain. And I thought it was important. I have a 5-year-old son. I thought it was important for him to be a part of what's happening, for him to have knowledge as to what's happening. I knew the organizers, so I knew they were taking extra precaution. It's going to be a safe situation. So I felt okay with my husband bringing my 5-year-old son and my 2-year-old daughter with me.
Definitely.
So we're getting ready to leave the house. We're getting dressed. As we're getting ready to walk out the door, my son runs out of his room, says, "Mommy, I'm ready." And he is dressed in his full police gear, head to toe, badge. I was trying to get him badge, his police hat, his walkie-talkie, because he's 5. At that age, you want to be a firefighter, you want to be a police officer, you look up to these people.
Right.
And my son has had an obsession with police since he was young. So when we're getting ready to go to this rally, this is for George Floyd. He is dressed in full police gear to the best, and he was ready. So my question to you, and is Reverend Caprice back? I know she's okay. My question to you is, as a mother, how do I let my son know what's happening, educate him without tainting his image and causing fear of police officers?
Definitely.
Because one of the questions was like, "But mommy, I don't understand what's happening. Police officers are supposed to be good." And we do know for a fact, I'm going to say it on the WWW, there are good police officers. I know that for a fact.
No, that's tough, especially when you talk about a 5-year-old. At this time, their world is just so innocent. And, firefighters and police officers and soldiers and the military are just like their heroes outside of their cartoon fictional heroes.
Right.
So to try to have this type of conversation with him, to say, "Hey, baby, at this time, right now we're going to mourn somebody," because in a way, as a community, we're all mourning George Floyd, even through our demonstration. We're all going through the grievance cycle, the cycles of grief, and protesting was just that actionable step that many was taking in individuals. So to have that type of conversation with him, to say, "Well, baby, this event that we're going to is to go and mourn someone, so this may not be the appropriate outfit," not just to say police are bad, this may not be the appropriate outfit. So at the end of the day, he may understand, okay, well, it's almost like it's not Halloween. So we can't put this on right now. Another way about it, just to keep that innocence there. Because we do have to gauge where our children's social emotional development is in order for us to have that conversation. And you, as his mother, probably know best about what he can and cannot handle at the age of 5.
Right.
So just for just keeping that situation you just stated, the way I would approach is like, "Man, we're going to mourn this person, and maybe it's not the appropriate outfit, but we'll be able to wear your police uniform on at a different time later on today." But so my real question is, what did you end up doing?
I let my husband.
That was good.
They told his son. And he just has a wonderful way of speaking to him, because we've been slowly but surely trying to educate him, and it makes you feel very uncomfortable, because in the child's mind, if you say one person's bad, then everyone's bad. And I don't understand, because his question is always, but they're supposed to be good guys that arrest the bad guys.
Right. So, in their thought processes, everything is very like black and white for them, good, bad, at that age.
Right.
So sometimes we have to break it.
I'm sorry.
The video.
If someone has their Facebook on or something, please mute it, because we're getting the feedback and the echo.
No, I think she said she's having trouble with her video. I believe that's what she was trying to.
Who's that?
Reverend Caprice. I believe she said she's having trouble with her video.
Okay.
But at that age, they're definitely at that stage of development. There is really just in a very black and white type of thought process. So we have to approach these conversations very gently.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Oh,
Yes,
boy.
ma'am.
but I'm having, you do, I'm having terrible technical situation,
Yeah, we can hear that. It's going in and out.
but hi, I only heard.
Oh boy. The internet could be good and bad, right? Just like police.
I don't know.
Oh, did you hear
I mean,
that?
but it's definitely Reverend Caprice, you going in and out, you know. But I'm just glad that you guys approached that in a way that is wasn't tainting to his development as a child. You know,
So,
still having an educational moment.
guys, I am reading the comments. I do see your comments. Thank you for commenting. Lisa Norris said that her 5-year-old son now runs away.
I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you now.
You probably have to log back out and log back in because you're sideways and you're popping in and out.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
You do?
Do you want to log out and log back in to see if the reconnection will help?
Me or okay, I don't know how I'm coming. My voice. I just want to say.
Okay. I'm gonna have her log back in and back out. I'm sorry, Pernell. So yeah, Lisa said that her 5-year-old now runs away, you know, when he sees police. So how do we, on a whole, just
As a community,
how do we educate? Because at the end of the day, they still need education.
definitely.
Yeah.
And you know, we have to definitely break down how we're educating them in those moments. You know, so here I'm in the state of Florida. Actually, I live in Sanford, Florida. I'm born and raised in Sanford, Florida, which is the city where the Trayvon Martin murder took place.
Okay.
So currently, and just like Tim, I'm also currently running for office here to be a county representative that's going to represent this city. But we have to really break it down on how we're doing these things. One thing that I did after that incident occurred, we did something called public service education. Public servants for education.
Okay.
Where we partner with our local police department and sheriff department here and train them up on being tutors for K through 5.
Wow.
So now so they met for 12 Saturdays for 2 hours to help our community kids either with reading or mathematics. That was from K through kindergarten to 5th grade. And one of the stories that I can truly remember in this throughout that 12-week program was this young lady. She was in 3rd grade, and when she seen the police officers in there, because some came in uniform, and I kind of wanted that. I wanted them to come in uniform. I had them switch out. Sometimes they came in uniform, sometimes they came in plain clothes. So the kids got an opportunity to see them as a human being and not just their profession. But one young lady walked in her first week, and she stopped dead in her tracks out of fear.
Wow.
Out of fear, because only time she had any encounter with police officers was when they came to her home to arrest either her brothers or her father. So she was very fearful, but the highlight of the story is that over those weeks of interaction, even by the end of that day, she became a little more comfortable with the police officers. Had a little more understanding and acceptance, and was really was excited for the officer that became her tutor for that time, and always looked forward to working with him. So we have to try to almost exposure those exposure moments. For kids that age, exposure is gonna be the best thing, and then also vice versa for the law enforcement personnel in our community. We have to invite them in.
Right.
To be a part of this community relationship building. Ultimately, I'm a United States Marine as well. And I tell people as a United States Marine, before I went to combat, we did a lot of role playing. A couple of weeks before we deployed out, we went to something called CATS, or Combined Armed Training, out in California. And what they did in Combined Armed Training is that they created this model city of Iraq. They had residents that were more of Iraqi ethnic makeup. Okay. So now we're getting hands-on role play for what we're going to actually fully experience once we go to Iraq. So that help us control our emotional regulation, help us know how to interact with the citizens in a healthy manner. So these things, now we're able to think in a more clear form and formation when we're actually in combat zones, because we're going through this hands-on experience. So we have to, once again, this exposure. So police officers that are planning to become police officers or already police officers need to come into our communities and just walk around. It's really immerse and talk with the citizens. See us as people. See the communities that they're serving as a place just that you're serving. Because it's a difference between serving and enforcing. And oftentimes in the Black community, we feel like we're being enforced more than anything. When you have police officers, like currently I live in a more affluent area of where I grew up at.
Okay.
And I can tell you the difference of police presence from where I live now to where I grew up it's night and day. Where if I go to my mother's house right now, I'm guaranteed that there's a police just sitting off in the cut by the stop sign waiting for like a rolling stop.
Yes.
And where I come home now, where I live at, it's pretty much, police officers waving at you. So it's night and day. So we have to really move from this enforcement type of thought process and really talk about, seeing individuals as human beings, and as a mental health professional, one of the biggest things I do, I go out and do training on implicit bias trainings. I go out and do social emotional regulations trainings.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't have emotional regulation, that's the issue. Mr. Jackson said something that I thoroughly enjoyed. He said that he talked to his clients about comply and breathe later. Now I don't utilize that terminology. I'm big on code switching. I want to utilize language that's going to actually, for me, catch the attention and be processed to be utilized. So when I go out and do the same type of speaking Mr. Jackson do, I often say, win the game. Because majority of people understand about win the game. So when the interaction between yourself and the law enforcement personnel, you want to win that game. So you can move on and move forward and play the next game, which may be in the courtroom.
Right.
So oftentimes, I'm a grown adult male. So I have had many years of having the practice of regulating my emotions and knowing how to respond in a way that's going to be successful to where I'm able to move forward. Oftentimes we put this type of pressure on our kids, like, hey, you need to know how to just be quiet and move. No, that's right. Very difficult. It's very difficult. And it's something that we must continue to enforce. So when I talked about winning the game, I often go through what would you do if a police officer pulled you over? How would you communicate?
Awesome.
What are you feeling right away? Because I'm not telling you to suppress your emotions. Because if I get pulled over now, I do feel it some type of way. I'm like, what am I getting pulled over for?
Right.
But I have to really okay, Pernell, is that really necessary? Let's bring it back.
Right.
Just like Mr. Jackson said, I'm not answering any questions. I'm gonna keep my thing. I always say, I'm gonna say the same thing. Officer, am I being detained or not detained? And that's all I'm answering in that moment.
So if
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
if I were to summarize the first half of what you were saying,
yes.
I'm corny like this. I come up with it. Will the good cops please stand up? Right? Because
okay. Yeah.
especially for our younger kids, we need them to know that
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. So we definitely need that they say there's only a small percent of bad apples in the law enforcement personnel. So we definitely need that large percentage to stand up and be more vocal. I have an older brother that is a sergeant in the police force here in our local area. So I definitely have much respect for law enforcement personnel. But we definitely need that. We need them to stand up. And not only when our kids are in K-5, but it's more that adolescent time frame is when we need our officers to really understand how to practice and control their emotional regulations when interacting with our youth. Because I know a lot of times our youth, as I think,
that's a whole nother panel.
Oh, that's a whole other panel. My bad. I'll bring it back. I'll bring it
back. But rightfully so, conditions are a little bit different right now. This is great talk, but conditions are rough right now. People have been suppressed in houses and we've been locked in, coronavirus, unemployment. There's no community programs. People are frustrated. They've been traumatized watching TV, watching how people get killed, murdered, everything. I mean, they're watching their parents with no jobs. The unemployment, the extra money is getting ready to get cut off for those people. So there are different circumstances that have been added on. And, on top of an already stressful situation, there's more stress. Yeah. So in theory, while we're saying comply, there's a lot of trauma and stress and frustration
And as a mental health professional, you know, that's something that we definitely work through. We talk about the different stages of stress. You know, we have positive stress, tolerable stress, and toxic stress. Right now, we're in the midst of we're all experiencing, as you just broke down, Ms. Robinson, a toxic stress level. So as a mental health clinician, is one thing that I try to work with my clients is just trying to get them to a better regulated stage. And when we're talking about interactions between, because oftentimes interaction between law enforcement and our community, it isn't just for, I guess, just we're smiling and saying hello. It's majority of the time it's a interaction that is of negative consequence, some shape, form, or fashion. So my biggest goal, anytime working with our community or working with law enforcement personnel, is to ensure that emotional regulation is there to where they're able to manage that stressful situation. Understand that this is going to be a short fuse. And like you just stated, with everything we have going on, it may be easier for us to get deregulated because we have a lot going on. But it's when we realize that we're about to become deregulated that, like I said, if I get pulled over, I may become deregulated in that moment, but I have to really, okay, how can I come back? And those are the tools and interventions that we're trying to really pass down and give to our community.
And thank you for saying that, because I wanted to deal with the mental health aspect in 3 sections. So the younger children not tainting their innocence, but then our teenagers. You know, I've been a teacher for 15 years. I'm a music teacher, blessed to be part of the Department of Education. I quit 2 years ago. I'm still in the school now as a DOE vendor, still teaching. I absolutely love my students are like my children. Like personally. So these conversations that we're having with our Black boys about, you know, George Floyd and the this and the that happens in my classroom, not because something happened. Those conversations happen because it's Tuesday. Like they live this every single day. So I really want to know, how can we help our teenagers that are they're literally living in fear?
So, you know, literally living in fear, you know, so we right now, our teenagers are probably experiencing more trauma on a daily basis than the average teenage. So, you know, I look and try to understand. One thing I always do with educators, with parents, you know, we talk about the stage of development. So we got to understand where they are in their stage of development and what's going on internally for where they are. So, 18 years old, if we're utilizing Erik Erikson model, they're at the stage of development, what we call role identity versus role confusion. And during that stage, they're really trying to find their true sense of self.
Can you say that one more time? Identity versus
role confusion.
Role confusion. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the Erik Erikson model of social stages of development.
Okay.
So we're talking about how to have these conversations with teenagers. You got to understand, first and foremost, you know, when they're media is a big influence on our teens during that stage. They're media and their heroes. Where the community members, we're not as much, you know, those and their family members. So to really address the trauma that they may be experiencing on a daily basis. For myself, I witnessed someone get shot at 13 years old very close to me. You know, so talking about going back into my classroom the next day and just, hey, you should be able to get over this.
Right.
When I came back from the Marine Corps, and my job was I was an infantry rifleman, so that was literally my job. But I came back to services. You have counseling for you. We have debriefings for you, things that's going to allow you to really work through what you have been exposed and what you have been experiencing to help you really either regulate the feelings that you feel around those or manage the trauma that you experience from it. So that's what we have to truly do. You know, I think it's very unfair for us to put that on our teachers. That's why it's very important that we really partner with mental health professionals. Understand this is going to be an interprofessional type of full-fledged attack that we all have to attack it from different angles. So as a mental health professional, I work very closely with teachers to really talk about, okay, how can we have these conversations? And they have to be specific conversations in that. It can't just be sidebar conversations in the middle of class. Sometimes we have to really take class sessions aside, or maybe do some after school activities to invite those students to come in to really process what they're feeling, to process the trauma that they may be going through. You know, so to answer your question more specifically, we have to really be intentional about how we're addressing it.
Yes, I love that.
To answer your question more specifically, very intentional when it comes to their social, emotional, and psychological well-being.
I just want to jump in and just share something personal. So I have a 24-year-old son who is a direct service professional. He takes care of disabled elderly people and works like late hours. And like as a parent, he gets off at 11 at night. I don't go to sleep until he gets home because even though he drives a car and he gets out of his job, goes to the car, like I just am in sheer fear just from him getting out the job and going to the car and just driving home. And so I've reverted back to like this small oversight. Are you out of the job? Did you get in the car? Are you on the way home? How close are you? And he's like, Ma, are you kidding me? But like he gets it. But it's ridiculous. Like, so I've gotten into this place of, oh my gosh, I can't even go to sleep until he's in the house because it's this psyche that has.
No,
so I think therapy is like it's traumatized beyond measure across the board for a lot of people.
You know, so when we think about trauma in the first place, a lot of times, you know, trauma is just a distressing event that we may all experience. So we all experience these distressing events, and it may hit each individual differently. So for you, Ms. Patrice, what you just stated was that because of everything you have been exposed to, because also trauma, you don't have to directly experience it, it's just hearing and seeing it. So think about with media, we're seeing it all the time. With the news, we're hearing it. So now these things are getting just processed in you. Now you're thinking about the concerns of my son. So you have been traumatized.
Right.
So ultimately, get into a place of you recognizing it first, and understand, okay, do I need to seek out assistance? Oftentimes in our community, that's the last thing we think about it. You know, we often talk about praying it away. We're going to talk with our friends about it, maybe our close relatives. But it's something within the therapeutic interventions that allows you to really dig deep and be vulnerable about exactly why you're going through this right now. What is giving you go back to reverting to this thought process? Now you start this feeling of overprotectiveness when it comes to your son. You know, and this majority is going to probably be from you, Ms. Robinson, is everything that's going on in the world. I'm home safe, and I'm not sure that's going to happen. Even if he is a law-abiding citizen within an affluent community, like you said, Terry, you raising your son.
Yeah. So I will be on this live call. As influential and as powerful as I am glad to say that I have signed up to seek therapy for myself. And so my first session starts on next Thursday. And, you know, I'm proud to say that. And I don't consider myself crazy or anything like that. I've been quarantined. I lost my brother within the last 2 months. I've been experiencing all of this trauma and everything. So I just decided, you know what, my mental and well-being is important. And I have a lot of work to do in terms of what I'm trying to accomplish. So I need to do some self-care so I decided it was the right thing to do. So for anybody out there that's listening, you know, it's okay. So I'm going to dispel that rumor that we are okay to do that and still be okay.
Mr. Jackson, I know you had something to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, not at all. A couple of things to say. First of all, you know, Patricia, I think what you said is so really compelling and so important. I think oftentimes people who need assistance and they need therapy, and you know, I guess maybe they think, well, people think a certain way. Well, you think I'm not right, and I think it's so important to lead by example. And so the fact that you said, look, this is what I'm going to seek, hopefully it will encourage other people to do that and other people to know and understand that that's great and that's wonderful and it's okay and there shouldn't be any stigma attached to it. And so I give you kudos to that. And Pernell Bush, if I could just segue to you, thoroughly enjoying the things you have to say, just a wealth of knowledge about this stuff. And, you know, I guess there's one thing in particular that I want to ask you about, you know, in representing people in some, you know, pretty significant and high stakes issues that happen in their life, oftentimes they get stuck in that place. And I get it. I mean, we're talking about things that are very important. Am I going to go home to my family again? You know, will I be able to be with my family? Will I be able to raise my children? Will I be incarcerated? Will I not be? What does my future look like? There's so much uncertainty. And I oftentimes think what happens, Mr. Bush, is that it gets people in a place where they're stuck there. And it's very difficult for them to move off of that issue. And, you know, I have the pleasure of meeting people and representing people who are so talented. And I know they can do so much, but they're stuck in that place. And so, you know, And as a lawyer, you try to do a number of things, right? You try to be, part psychiatrist, part motivator, part reality, explaining the realities, but also trying to have them overcome and inspire and to understand we're going to get by this. We're going to do this. We're going to be there. So the question I would have for you is how can people move off of that place that they're stuck in, off of that, whether it's a traumatic experience, whether it's that legal experience, whether it's just, I'm just not in a good place right now. What advice can we give them to shift, to let them know you can do better, you will get better, tomorrow's a better day?
Well, those affirmations are great. What you're just saying, definitely just being that support system to really continue to say, hey, it may be bad right now, but continue to move forward. Things could potentially get better. But one thing that we may have to do, and what I'm hearing from you, Mr. Jackson, is we may have to do some inner child work. So inner child work is what we're doing to really talk to that child that's inside us that's been stuck in that place. Because all the time we get stuck somewhere in our timeline, in our stage of development, we're constantly at that same stage of development. Although you may be a 35-year-old male, you might have got stuck at 17, 18, 21 because of traumatic experience that you went through. So we got to go to get down to underlining, like asking those questions for inner self. What is it that took place in my life that during that time that got me stuck? And first we have to realize that we're stuck. I have friends right now. I just had a close friend of mine who served 10 years in prison. And when he got home, he was like the same individual.
Wow.
Same. Where everybody else, we understand we're in our mid-30s, early in the mid-30s, and we're at different stages of development. But for him, it was like he was still in that same place.
Wow.
And
I used to be in my 30s too. I was 180. It was pretty nice.
I couldn't hear you. You're breaking. I'm sorry.
In my mid-30s too. That was a great time.
That was like 2 years ago, Mr. Jackson.
I listen. I know about a couple years ago.
You said a few weeks ago. I thought it was last week. Come on.
That's what I meant to say.
But what it seems like, a lot of people, when you get stuck in this traumatic stage of your life and really have to go back, so as a mental health clinician, I tell my clients, I'm a reality-based type therapist, but we do go back and touch on some of the things that have occurred in your life that has been the biggest hindrance of just stopping you from your social, emotional, and psychological development to where you want to be for a quality life that you deserve. So that work is something that we have to really, as clinicians, get you to talk to that inner child, to get you to listen to that inner child, to get you to understand the feelings that inner child probably got stuck with. That's probably why you're still feeling that same way today, and how to either answer those feelings and get to a place of, I guess, accepting them, or understand what we got to do to get to solutions to fix them. For the same thing with the thoughts, process, and things of that nature. So once again, this is an interpersonal type of, interprofessional type of effect that we all have to do together. Everybody have to do together. So you as a lawyer, Mr. Jackson, I say, hey, you stay within that lane, and also with the words affirmation, but pull a clinician in like myself, like, hey, listen, this client here is stuck. What can I do? And we may be able to see something and pull something out of this client, or at least help them work through their internal issues to ensure that now, while you're working with them as a client, that they can also move forward once you're successful with their case.
That collaboration is powerful.
Yeah.
Mr. Jackson, this is me really asking, can inmates receive mental health care? Like, is that available to them?
So yes. So what happens is that there are programs, of course, and I shouldn't, of course, but there are programs inside facilities where inmates can get that mental treatment. Obviously, there are some programs that are, more elaborate than others, that are better equipped than others. But I think it first comes with a recognition that it's needed. And I think that, if they come to the place where they understand that it's not perceived as weakness if I get mental health treatment, it's not perceived as weakness if I get therapy, it's not perceived as weakness if I'm trying to better and advance myself from that, inner child place that Pernell Bush is talking about. And that Patricia Robinson has, been courageous enough to say, hey, look, I'm going and I'm going to do it. I think we'll get there. But I think oftentimes that they may think inmates that there's a stigma. I can't go. What are they going to think of me? What's going to happen?
Right.
And that's exactly why it's important that it's more clinicians like myself in the field. You know, oftentimes I have a very heavy caseload of adult males and adolescent males. You know, a lot of them like, man, I feel much more comfortable because I'm, I guess to them, I'm a typical masculine heterosexual male that they can come and speak with. You know, I don't know how, but I have had clients state that made a difference for them to feel okay and come and open up. Because they just seen like, okay, man, if you're strong enough to be in this position, and this is a client that told me like, man, if you're strong enough to be in this position to want to help me, I gotta be strong enough to open up.
Wow.
You know, and that really made me step back in understanding, you know, in the mental health profession across all the psychologists, psychiatrists, clinical social workers, mental health counselors, marriage and family therapists, Black representation is only 1 to 4% in the mental health profession. And then as a Black male, it's even smaller than that.
We appreciate it.
So it's definitely important that first, me being a Black male, going out and talking about mental health stigmas to try to decrease that. So when those things do come up, they feel okay with speaking with someone. That's one of my most important things I'm gonna do now. So Mr. Jackson is exactly right. Those services may be available to them, but they have to be comfortable enough to reach out and want to receive those services. You know, and even before they get incarcerated, you know, for myself, we're working at for No Limit. We're actually working on a pilot program for those who are returning citizens. And if you're not familiar with the term returning citizens, those who are being released from prison as felons, we utilize the term returning citizens here in the state of Florida, and I know it's getting widespread.
Because the latter half of this conversation, when it deals to mental health, is once they have gone through the system.
Yes.
You know, we know this young man.
Yes.
And we know how his story ended. This is Khalid Potter. He committed suicide. He couldn't take it.
Yes, and you know, he was in solitary for 2 years. But the thing is, like I said, with No Limit, currently we're running a pilot program to where when citizens are returning home, they actually get opportunity for mental health counseling as well. You know, so we're reaching out to counselors who are open to donating some of their time, up to 3 sessions. Hopefully we get some of that, and when we get funding to be able to afford more, because oftentimes returning citizens don't have the funding to either pay for it, don't have the insurance to pay for it. So we have to be very creative about what we're doing to offer mental health services to returning citizens. And then also on the front end, before we have our young men, but even see the legal justice system to receive services that may be necessary. So we are attacking it from all fronts here with No Limit Health and Education.
We appreciate you. A lot of people are giving you kudos in the comments, and they want to know how they can reach you.
Definitely. So I can be reached. My email is pbush@keycounselingsolutions.com. That's pbush, and I'll put it in the comment section as well, so you can share with me, Terry.
Yes, please.
And then also you can find me on all my social media. LinkedIn is Pernell Bush, Facebook Pernell Bush, and then Instagram, the Juggernaut _ therapist. But I love to continue to speak with you all, because mental health, for myself, having mental health challenges myself, being diagnosed with ADHD, opposition defiance disorder when I was a child, you know, getting all these diagnoses at a young age, and then becoming stigmatized, and then seeing the mental health issues within my own family and community. You know, that's what made me want to become a mental health clinician, because I never seen anyone that looked like me, and I like. That there is a big mental health issue in the Black community, but I'm not really seeing anyone doing the work to decrease that. And a lot of the rules and regulations for mental health weren't written for our community. You know, so even when I started my mental health practice, I have a private practice as well. When I started, the biggest thing I was doing, once again, was getting out of my community and providing education, psychoeducation. Like, hey, how can you do that? You may get too close to clients. First and foremost, our community is not coming to see anyone that they don't feel comfortable with.
Exactly.
And secondly, even if I tell people, even if you don't see me, see someone. So oftentimes what that does is prompt community members to call me. Hey, Mr. Bush, I'm looking for a mental health therapist. I know I can't possibly see you because you may be pulled up. Do you have anyone you can recommend? So now I can vouch for my other colleagues that may not even come from our community or may not be of our ethnic makeup, but I trust them of being culturally aware enough to work with our community.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful. You know, and it's because the stigma with therapy is, before it was like it's a white people thing, right? Black people like, I don't need therapy, I ain't crazy, you know.
That's
but
right.
I tell you from my own, especially in the Black church, you know, as a Christian myself, I was just like, I'm gonna just pray and leave it to Jesus. And as powerful as Jesus is, I am a testimony. Yes, Jesus and therapy saved my life. Do you hear me? Jesus.
Listen, I did something called the church tours, man. I reached out to about 300 churches in my area, and only 10 responded. You know, I asked, hey, I would love to come to your church on a Sunday, not just on your men's night, women's night, but on a Sunday, and just speak for 10 minutes about the importance of mental health and how to reach out for mental health. And out of 300 churches I reached out to, only 10 responded back.
Listen, and that's okay, because before it might have been none. We're coming.
Once again, it shows the progress that we're making, but it shows how much progress we have to make when it comes to, once again, that interprofessional collaboration. I often come back and talk about, you know, and I'm glad Reverend Caprice is back on.
Yes.
Hi, how are you? I don't know how long I'm going to be on.
Well, let's Mr. Bush, let's jump to Reverend Caprice. Can you just wrap up this mental health section, because we do have Kajay's mom waiting. So now that you're back on, I
want to hear from Kajay mom. It's just that we need to protect our young people by informing them, giving them knowledge, and practicing what we preach in front of them. That's a big part, because they watch what we do, just like they hear what we say. So we have to practice what we preach. That's a very big part of it also. We can't tell them to do one thing and we're doing another. I'm just talking off the top of my head, because right now I'm stressed with what all has been happening this morning.
Oh no, you got back on. It's okay.
So mental health is a very big part. We think we know, but we don't. It's like when we say, when people say, oh, they don't hear, they don't understand, they're just kids. No, they hear. You think they sleep, but they're not, and they understand. Okay, so we need to have direct contact in conversation with them and spare their innocence. You know, they're innocent and they're still going to be innocent. It's how you give them the information. I remember, I'm also HIV advocate for that, when a facilitator, and I would take my son with me to do the facilitation. And when he got back to school, he gave them a 101 presentation on HIV and AIDS.
Wow.
Unwarranted though. I mean, unsolicited though. Okay. So I got a phone call saying, Tim gave the children how they get AIDS and how they get HIV. I'm saying, was he right with the information? And they said yes. So he heard it, he heard the message, and he was able to give it. I believe that we need to speak to our young people, give them the information. Don't say, oh, they're going to lose their innocence. No, they're not. You can see what they're seeing, you hear what they're hearing. They already lost their innocence, you know, as far as that, the music and the television shows and the media and the entertainment, all of that. And there's nothing wrong with some of those things, but we need to give what is fact to them and stop being scared about it. So I should be able to speak to my 5-year-old or 6-year-old and say, here, you know, the police are supposed to be our friends, but and we need to be real direct with that. But you know, all of them are not as the, you know, such, and we need to prepare them for the meeting of those that aren't. Not so much those that are, it's those that are not holding up the law,
because there are those
garbage out their window. When you say hold the garbage until you get to the garbage can. It's simple things like that. And
Mhm.
you showing them, you know what, this is real. You can like the police, you can like the fireman, you can like all of these people and respect them, but you need to be respected too. And so mentally, we need to begin in our homes
Mm.
to practice that with one another. All right. And then guide our children through the truths of what's happening today. But we should not go about it in fear. We need to be upright with. I remember my mother telling me, I tell Tim too much, like about sex. I'm like, if I don't tell him,
The
who's going to
streets
tell him?
will. Someone
He's going to
will.
read
Yeah.
about it in a book. He's going to read about it on the side of the bus. He's going to
Right.
look at it in television. So I better be the one. I was a single parent. I
Wow.
better be the one to tell my son what's up, how
Correct.
to and how not to. So, we need, you're saying how to speak to our young people. We need to speak to them directly and without fear and telling them the truth
Thank
about
you.
what's happening now.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Reverend Caprice. I do agree. I agree. I see you guys in the comments. Cheryl DeWitt says intentional teaching starts in preschool and should continue through high school. Right.
Yes.
So as you're saying, give give them the facts, age appropriate, direct, informational, and intentional conversations both at home and in school. Thank you, Ms. DeWitt. And Lisa says, yes, truth without fear because they pick up on our energy. Yes, they feel it. They're watching us. Nothing gets past these children. You're so right. Thank you guys for your comments. So, as I mentioned before, I am also so blessed to be an educator. And I take on my students as my children. And I have one former student in particular that I'll never forget. I got a call one night from another student, hysterical on the phone, that Kajay has been arrested and has been detained. And unfortunately, I do have some students that if I were to get one of those calls, it wouldn't be a surprise. But Kajay was not one of them. Kajay is, excuse me, because he is still here. Kajay is an aspiring actor and singer. Those of you who know me, I'm a singer, so I was the music teacher. And Kajay always came to Ms. Khan for singing advice and music industry advice. Kajay didn't even attend our school. There are 4 schools on our campus, but my school is the performing arts school in the campus. So Kajay convinced the principal to let him be a part of our performing arts department. So I'm going to show you the Kajay that I know. Just a few seconds. Naomi, do we have that video ready? I'm talking to my media person here because this is so important. We are spotlighting his case because we actually have his mom who's waiting to come on and speak to us. So I'm just watching. I want to make sure that the video is ready to roll. Naomi, if you can't find it, it's fine. We can move on because we don't want to keep the mom waiting.
And can you just share with them, Terry, that Kajay is his current status?
Oh yeah. Oh, we're gonna get to it. Okay. So all right, it's fine, Naomi. So Kajay is an aspiring musician, let's say actor and singer. So I got the call one day that Kajay has been detained. This was over a year ago. And I really want to show you, sorry. Hold on one second, guys. I'm so sorry. Please. Okay. And when we talk about educating ourselves as parents, when I speak to Sardea, yeah, here we go. When I speak to Sardea Bethea, who is his mom, who's about to come on, and you speak to her, I tell her all the time that she should be the lawyer on her son's case, because when this happened to her son, we see him in the Daily News here. Brooklyn teen accused of arson, double murder for friends, was distraught after learning girlfriend's baby was not his. So Kajay found himself in a situation where he went to visit his grandmother, and after he left, there was a fire that killed 2 people, and Kajay is being held in contempt for it. Right now, I'm going to bring up Ms. Sardea Bethea, who is Kajay's mom.
Hello, everyone.
Let me make sure we got you on the screen, Sardea. There we go. How are you, Sardea?
Hello, everyone. I'm okay, and you?
I am well, thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on this panel with us. We have been speaking about this case, all of us. You know that we truly, truly, truly love Kajay as if he is our own. And we just want to shed some light on this case, because we're talking about our Black boys, and it's a general concern. But this is an actual case that's going on right now. So we want to talk to you as a mother of a Black son who is a victim right now. So can you just summarize Kajay's case and what's going on for us, please?
Well, Kajay's right now being housed in Rikers Island. He's been indicted on murder. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's just hard for me to
Of course.
talk about it, but basically Kajay is been indicted for murder, 2 counts of murder, arson, manslaughter, and Kajay faces up to 25 years to life for this. It hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I know my son didn't do it. My son ain't capable of doing it. The paperwork, it's a circumstantial case. The fact that he was there, but that's his great grandmother's house. He has the right to be there. He wasn't at the, wrong place. That was the right place. This was great grandmother. They offered him a plea deal, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Are you there, Sardea? I think her connection is going in and out too. So, Mr. Jackson, I'm going to call on you for this one. Okay, you're back. Go ahead, Sardea.
And like I said, basically now we just waiting to go to trial. That's where we at with it.
Okay. So, as we mentioned before, and one of the things I keep talking about in interrogation tactics, and Mr. Jackson, I'm gonna pull on you a little bit for this. So the newspaper article read that Kajay was upset, right? He was upset because his girlfriend got him upset so he left church early and went to his grandmother's house. They have pegged and I'm not asking you to defend the case because I know you don't have a lot of knowledge, but I'm just, I'm generalizing everything. So they have no evidence that's pointing to Kajay, except the fact that he was seen leaving the house. In the interrogation room, we also know that there was one time that he was questioned without his mother for a few minutes. He was questioned without his mother. And I have to say, at that time, Kajay was a minor. And nothing happened with him. Like, they left him in juvenile detention until he became 18, which I believe is also another tactic that is used, knowing that he was on the cusp of his 18th birthday, to be so that he can be found at trial as an adult. So I see you shaking your head. Do you hear these cases often? Yes.
Yeah, you really do, and it's really unfortunate. To Miss Bethia, I know. Listen, for something like for your child like this to be going through, for your child to be going through this, I'm sure it must hit home very hard. And I know that we would, as parents, give our lives for our children. So I can't even imagine where you are now, mentally, spiritually, how you're feeling about this. You must be in a very difficult place. I spoke before, Ms. Bethia, about, when in representing people, they're going through some very difficult things. And so for this to happen to your child, I wanted my first reaction to be one of a person, not as a lawyer. And so it has to be difficult. And so certainly, we pray that you and your family get through this and that you're in a different place when you do. As to evidentiary issues, oftentimes when a person is accused of a crime, motive is a very significant thing. Now, let me explain what I mean. You never have to demonstrate motive to establish somebody engaged in a crime. What is motive? Motive is the reason, the basis, the purpose for which someone would do what they're accused of doing. You never have to, if you're a prosecutor, prove that. It's not an element of what we call the crime charge, but a jury would want to know why a person would have engaged in activity. And so oftentimes prosecutors use that. And so I suspect that in this particular case, they will attempt to use that. To the question of him just walking out of a particular location, that could be compelling because it establishes that he's present, that he's there. It doesn't, mere presence alone doesn't establish anything, but certainly it gets the connection. But there are so many other issues and instances that they have to establish, and motive in and of itself doesn't and can't establish guilt. There needs to be other evidence that's there. And that's along with other things, statements, other witnesses, what they saw. I'm sure they're doing forensic analysis on how the fire started, when it started. Was it a natural consequence to start the fire? Was it something that was wrong at the home? Did somebody start it alone? So there's a lot to go through, but I can tell you that, anybody who's in the throes of our system, it's a tough system to be in. And when you're a child, 20 years, or 25 years if convicted, and 20 years is a plea bargain, it's just very difficult all the way around. So, obviously I won't try the case now, nor prosecute nor defend now, but I'll just say that, there's a lot ahead to be handled. There's a lot ahead to be done. And I'm just hopeful and prayerful that he's in hands that you're confident.
Good afternoon to Ms. Bethia.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, that you're comfortable in and that you're confident in, and that they could see, him through this particularly very difficult and challenging process.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, hi, Sadia. And the reason that we're all gathered here today is, we all came together as a result of, we all got pulled from different places, because I quite honestly have just recently met Terry probably less than 4 weeks ago. And it was on the premise of understanding and hearing about Kajay. And so when I heard about this, I said, wow, I don't want to come to the table on this. I don't know how I can help this. I don't know. But when I heard the story, my natural instincts as a human, as a mom, I just couldn't walk away. And so we all decided to just band together in our best efforts to, number one, bring some effort and some realization to dialogue to this on our own accords, see what we can do with our own resources and things like that. So, we're hopeful, we're prayerful, we're hopeful and prayerful that we will be able to do something to support this effort. I'm limited on what I can share at this point, but I am doing as much as I can behind the scenes with things that I can do to support her and in whatever ways I can. And this is one effort. And just as parents in particular, you know, we are very close to this. And that's why we started this, Our Black Boys, because we know that there are many situations and mothers out there that are going through things like this. And we also want to offer you support as a mom because you have other children. So you're carrying the weight and the burden of having to worry about your child and keep his spirits up. And I know you, Terry, talk to Kajay probably every other day and trying to keep his spirits up. And so we have to keep lifting each other up to hopefully pray this and put everything together. The ultimate goal here is to get him home.
Yes.
Yes, and I say thank you. We thank you. We appreciate once again all of y'all that's helping and supporting to fight for Kajay to help get him released because it is scary.
Mhm.
It is hurtful. I do feel lost. I felt lost fighting it by myself because I didn't know the resources or didn't know where to go. Like I said, I'm grateful for Terry, for her to even know Kajay, to be able to put this together for him. Because if it wasn't for her, we would have, I don't know what we would do. We just would have been just keeping faith and praying and just hoping for a miracle. And that's still what we're doing. That still didn't stop. It still didn't stop. So I appreciate every last one of y'all who have some advice, some input, who's trying to help us, who's supporting us. We appreciate it. We do.
And we appreciate you. You are one of the strongest women that I've ever met. Like I said, when we talked to Sardia, she would tell you, well, this doesn't match up with this, and I don't understand how this happens. So kudos to you for being a parent who, and you said, right, I Googled everything that you were telling parents to do, Mr. Jackson. Sardia did. She said, I Googled everything. If I didn't understand something that was written, I went and I Googled it. So, and we are all here for your support. You know, we thank you, especially to Tim Terrain for pulling in the Black Coalition. Co-Black Coalition, Reverend Caprice is gone again. I wanted her to speak a little bit about it. But Ms. Pat, I'm going to throw it back to you. Can you just talk a little bit about the Co-Black Coalition? Because again, this is not just to come and speak. We want to take action. We want to help. We want to help our Black mothers.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a fortunate person that just happens to know some amazing community leaders that are in this fight for justice. And Tim Terrain, along with a lot of other amazing leaders, Aaliyah Abraham, just so many other people are grassroots organizers that live here in the Southeast Queens area and have just decided to take charge of our future. And they do that by addressing food insecurities from food pantries, addressing all kinds of issues. They take cases on like things that they can see as injustices. They take it on and they gather and they commune with neighbors and partners. We have something called the Black Resource Network. We have the Co-Black Coalition, where we're just taking on things that we feel are important and that we can manage. And we sit down and we have people from different areas of professions. We have social workers, therapists, we have lawyers, and we sit down and we brainstorm and we figure out, hey, what can we do with none to limited resources? And we put our energies together and we don't feel like it's a waste of time or any kind of robbery of time. And that's what it's going to take. And that's what I kind of referenced in the beginning of the call, is that people who are not necessarily can go out and put their feet to the ground. Like, what can you do? Can you lend some area of expertise? Like, what is your specialty? Is it a graphic designer? Is it a person that you can make community calls? Are you a researcher? There are things that we all can do to contribute to the progress of something. Are you a person that you are really good with data analytics? You know, if there's something that you can do to support your local communities, find out who your community advocates are and try to support those efforts. I believe that this is the first of many opportunities that we will bring some of these series, Our Black Boys, to fruition.
Yes.
I am so excited to have had the opportunity to listen to the expertise of Pernell Bush and Joey Jackson. But the $1 million question, because I can't leave this alone because it's been on my mind since we started this panel, is is that a virtual background that Joey is behind, or is he really sitting outside? Because I've been wanting to ask that since we started. I'm like, where is he?
As I'm quarantined in my apartment.
So I'm quarantined in my backyard, and it's been a tough time, I think, for everyone. But I'm just out here trying to enjoy a little bit of nature. But I have to say, let me say this: it is just such a pleasure to have spent the morning with all of you. And I think conversations like this are so very important to have. And so for you to organize it, take the time to do it, really develop such a wealth of knowledge and information as it relates to Pernell Bush and what you bring medically, and Patricia Robinson and what you bring in so many other ways, and Terry, just being a moderator. You guys are fabulous. And so thank you for allowing me to join you to have this important conversation. Know that you can, if you need advice or you have a question, you can call on me. I'm not going anywhere. And, we all have to do our part in developing and making things better. And, to Miss Bethia, again, my prayers are with you and your family. These cases are not easy. I sit in courtrooms, and they're very tough. Our system's very tough. But I can only hope that you are guided by the right people that are around you that'll do the right thing. And, just know that for everyone here and everyone listening, let's continue the struggle. There are better days ahead. So God bless each and every one of you. And thank you again for making me better by allowing me to be part of this experience.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you so
likewise.
much for your time, Mr. Jackson.
And
Very
likewise.
important question. How can we support mom and her son? That's a question that's coming from the comments. How can we support you? So the people want to know, how can we support you? What are you in need of right now?
Legal representation.
Okay.
That's what we're in need of. He has a legal aid lawyer, but his legal aid lawyer is not fighting for him. His
Okay.
legal aid lawyer doesn't listen to nothing he say, we say. Like I said, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm smart. I know how to read, comprehend, and understand. And I just want somebody there to help me, help him. Someone to see, someone who believe in him like I do, to see. I just need somebody to see, to know, like, this is not right. This is not right. It's not.
Okay.
He don't belong in there. Like, if it was more that I could say, I would say, but it's so much that
That's okay. That's okay.
I can't say. So it's like, I need help. We need support.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
So I would suggest that we do have an email here. It's ourblackboys@gmail.com. If there are people who want to or are interested in helping, our first step will be just to email that Gmail account. We're going to look into reasonable ways that are compliant and sufficient on how to support Miss Bethia. I don't want to spout out anything that is not fully vetted just yet, because there are situations that she's involved in that I want to make sure that don't jeopardize her situation legally. So if you could at least email that Gmail, and then we are going to vet out and follow up with those people who do want to support and help her on the best way that you can do that. So thank you so much. This has been an absolute honor, and to be continued for sure.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for everyone who has tuned in. It is 12 o'clock. We are about to end. Again, thank you to each and every panelist who has lent their time and their expertise. We urge you all, please email us at ourblackboys.com, ourblackboys@gmail.com. This is not the end. This is the start of something greater. This knowledge needs to be spread. Go ahead and share this. It's still going to be on the pages. Please continue to share. We want to be a support to Black mothers. Please email us, okay? And I'm going to just ask my panelists one last question, because we do need a conclusion. 30 seconds. 30 seconds for now.
Hey, listen, I got you.
30 seconds. What's next? What is the next? What is the conclusion? What is next? Go ahead for now.
So what's next? We must continue to work, and we must figure out ways to be innovative about how we impact our communities. we have to start working in silos and figure out how we can come together with our different organizations to really move forward with the efforts that we're trying to do to uplift and assist our Black mothers and our Black boys. So that's what's next.
Thank you so much, Miss Pat.
Yeah, I would just say if you have a voice, use your voice, know your strength, connect with your leaders. Do not be afraid to go into spaces that are unknown or unfamiliar with to you, and just take territory and don't be afraid. Like more than ever now than ever is the time for you to utilize your voice and activate.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jackson, last but not least.
We have an election coming up that's very important in November, and who presides over us is very important. And so all I will say is that we need to get to the polls. We need to exercise our might. Justice starts oftentimes at the top because the culture runs down. And if we could have people who have a greater understanding of the plight of our communities, who have an understanding of the dynamic of how to fix things, of how to make things better, about how to put people in positions of power who are sensitive and understanding to how we could develop things better and more effectively, I think that goes a long way. So remember that and exercise your right and vote. And I hear a wonderful child in the background, whoever you are. God bless you. You are our future.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sardia, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. We all empathize with you, and we are doing everything we can in the background. Kajay is going to come home. I know you birthed him, but that's my child. And as you all log off, I'm going to actually show one of my favorite videos of Kajay Woods. Thank you all for your time.
And make sure you're alright. I'll take care of you. I don't wanna be if I can't be with you tonight.
Our Black boys, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.